That's what I'll reference you to from now on if you want to get one of these videos from class. I'll just keep it, even if everybody's here, I'll keep a record of everything. So it's on a really amazingly famous channel. It's the Scott Anderson channel on YouTube. So you'll be able to find it quickly. There's 0 people watching now. Oh, there I am. Okay. It's always so painful to see yourself. Okay, so obviously there's no time limit. It's whatever. It should probably take us each about 30 seconds, I imagine, once you start conducting both of them. Okay. Okay, you ready? Yep, thank you very much. And on.
I think we got to do that pretty quickly. Yeah. Good job, everybody. So there are obvious limitations, aren't there, with the right hand? And while, you know, that's not always practical, we just did, like I said, it's kind of like compulsory ice skating. I mean, we're just worried about sound, silence, getting used to making kind of a couple of different motions back to back with the same hand, melded gestures. So now I'd like you, if you haven't already, to read the first probably 5 or 6 pages of the 3rd chapter, which is left hand use. And what I'd like to cover with you now is basically putting into action what we're talking about. And just from a practical standpoint, what would we identify as the primary role for the right-handed conductor? What we've been concentrating on now. What is one of the main roles of that? Keeping the beat. Keeping the beat, right? Keeping the beat and keeping it in what? In the pattern, so that the group understands what the meter is. So, okay, keeping a pulse. What else could be one of the main? Articulation. Yeah, can certainly be the articulation issue. So if there's staccato, legato, that kind of thing. Where would we show that primarily? What's that? In the style. In the style, how would that be? Like, what part of the physiology? Yeah, the wrist. So wrist is going to either be come into play a lot, or it's going to come into no use at all, right? I mean, that's a basic. That's white and black, really. But the gray areas in between, there's everything. So what are some other things that you've just done? I mean, another function of the right hand.
Preparation.
Preparation. What else? Or something else? Right. Is that what you did? Oh, yeah. Rest or breath. I mean, really, they're the same in this exercise. So yeah. So you've shown cutoffs. You've shown a stoppage of sound. And some of the responsibilities of each hand get a little bit blurred as we go into, you know, full body conducting technique, because as the author says, one of the primary uses for the left hand is going to be cueing. So regardless of where that we want to bring a waist part in or a part in, or give them warning, a preparation to enter, that's different than on the downbeat, or different than what is going on in the main structure. Let's say a counterpoint, maybe there's 2 or 3 or more voices singing a fugue, or they're singing imitated counterpoint or something like that. There's going to be multiple entrances all over your score. And depending upon the structure, right? I mean, if you've got an entrance on every beat or every other beat, you're not going to be doing this. But it really, again, it always depends on what's in the written score. So what's another role the left hand might undertake? You all have been in ensembles of every kind for your entire lives. And you've been responding to them. Dynamics, yeah. So dynamic variation, that's a biggie. Another thing. And sometimes the two have something to do with each other, but not always. I'm going to make a complete musical sentence. What is a musical sentence called? A phrase. A phrase. So phrasing could be, for instance, if you want to show the line or the general motion over the long haul, that would probably be something that the left hand would take care of. Not that the right hand never does. But just from your seated position, let's just start with something, every drum major's done every time they're up on the stand, and that is mirroring. Okay, so we're going to just do a 4 pattern. 1, 2, 3, breath. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Most conducting books, and I'm not belittling the role of a drum major, I'm just saying that most conducting books are going to say that continual mirroring is the waste of a good hand. And so that's kind of the philosophy that I want us to take, at least initially. And that is that if there are structures or there are articulations, let's say we have multiple entrances in a piece of music, and then everybody comes together and there are accents on all of the homophonic parts. That would be ideal for double hand conducting, right? I mean, there are uses for it. But like with anything else, what we want to try to find is the most efficient, most effective messaging that we want to give our groups. It's just like if all my conducting was this way, and I kept yelling at my choir, softer, louder, I become a screen, I become a visual screen, and nobody really needs to look at me because I'm overriding everything I say with my voice. Right? It's the same thing with this. If this is used all the time, even when it's legato, and when there's a structure that goes boom, 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 it just doesn't pack the same meaning. So I want to start there because for our brains, this is the easiest thing to do. This is the cross training of the brain because we're doing the mirroring. It's the same thing we can do with either half of our body, either limbs or shoulders or whatever. We can try to mirror the sides. But to do something that seems, oh yeah, I'm going to do that. I get it. Let's go on to chapter 2. The mechanics of doing something when we separate may be harder than you think. So let's keep that 4/4 pattern going at a stable tempo. And we're going to go 1, 2, 1 bar for nothing. And then on 1, we're going to bring our hand up for 1, 2, like that. So 1 bar for nothing, and then 2 bars of moving the arm up and down. Ready? Go. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, for some, maybe you've done it enough, and yeah, I can do that. But it's the beginning, middle, and end, turn, beginning, middle, and end, so that is separated from the articulations that you're showing here. Because there may be a structure where we have staccato, legato, at the same time that this is happening, right? So the separation of the two ideas is what we, or the two sensations, without thinking about it, so that it's involuntary. So now another way could be we go out and we come back. Let's try that. Let's truncate the experience, though. We're going to start writing with this over 2 measures of 4. Okay, here we go. 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4. So you can go somewhere, you can go out. And this idea is, well, let's do it this way. Let's get all the way out there to beat 2. And then don't start coming back until beat 3 of the second bar. So I'll give you an example. Let's do that. Ready? Go. I can't even do it. I'm so used to doing it the other way. So the point is that when you go out into the field and you observe, especially new conductors, you'll see a lot of this where it's they get all the way out in their space before they even reach the middle of the phrase. And what happens here? Well, in a choral setting, this becomes a technical problem. It becomes a tension problem with the singers, because what this looks like, isn't it? More, until there just is no more. Whereas this, over time, I think looks like a more reasonable gesture. So that's great. But now we also want, what have we already talked about? The pattern frame, the size of the pattern frame can reflect what? The size, the relative size of the pattern frame. Dynamic. So let's also incorporate that. So that when we, and let's use this one, up and down and out and up and down. So we're going to have a small box, and then we're going to get bigger, and then we're going to get smaller. Okay, here we go. 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now that's a little bit more difficult, because as we start to change the size of the box, our left hand might start flopping. And he talks about in the book, walking and chewing gum at the same time, or rubbing your tummy and rubbing your head, left. So that's our next step. And it's not like you do these things all the time, right? You do a subdivision all the time while you're playing or singing. You can tap one foot and subdivision with other kinds of things. So we do multiple kinds of separation skills all the time. This is just isolating the stuff for conducting. Follow me, owl. Whoops. Okay, these papers have not been very much contaminated because I have thoroughly washed my hands and decontaminated the Xerox and the whole bit. So anything that I give you that I hand out, I'll just try to make sure that it's really good safe. Okay, so we're going to do, in addition, now we're not going to isolate on just this exercise for the next period. But in addition to reviewing America the Beautiful, I want us to be practicing these. And what these double hand exercises are for is precisely what we did with the last thing you just filmed. And so you want to mark this on your sheet so that you're keeping track of it. The top line is the right hand, and the bottom line is the left hand. And so we're going to put, just like this box is set up right now, you all would only taw on the top line. You all would only taw on the left, on the bottom line. And so that helps us to keep, when you're conducting, helps us to keep track of, okay, here's where the sounds are for the right hand, here's where the sounds are for the left hand. So you'll do ta, ta, and we just have to run the machine, thinking, okay, I gotta think simultaneously, the preparation for this group, the cutoff for this group, etc. So the way to practice this first is to practice it hands apart. So let's all do the right hand first. Okay, so if we go about 1, 2, and we'll talk first. So 2, 3, 4, ta, 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 and you could just hold this one out. Okay, so including what we were doing before, there's also an accent in this one, which is going to have to be harder weight on the ictus point, or some indication that it's different. Now let's try the left hand. So what we're doing is we're doing a prep on 3 with sound on 4. Okay, 1, 2, ta, 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 ta. You know, just try as best you can to run those things. 2, 3, 4. Ta, 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 big. Ta, 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 ta. So you're gonna feel like, you know, one of those bring in the 747 kind of people on the penultimate bar. Literally gonna be, you're gonna be holding this and then that kind of thing. So getting used to how that, because then we're gonna have live people talk, like we did this last time, except, you know, just those particular differences is you're gonna be, we're not gonna try to make people go, huh, without them. You can look at the line. I mean, at this point, you know that an instrumentalist or a vocalist is gonna have their choral or their instrumental part. So it's not like everybody plays long. But the point is, we're gonna try to do what we see somebody conduct. If you don't get a clear downbeat or a clear ictus, you're not gonna talk. And if you get what looks like another ictus, even though it says a half note, we'll talk. So we still want to be try to play that game. It will be literal. Okay. So this is our fun and games in addition to, so along with other things, we'll just be having labs on this so that you get to talk. Yeah.
All right, and just to clarify this real quick, you said the top was the right hand and the bottom was the left.
That's right. Yep. So any other questions about this? Well, you're the one who's going to have to practice. Yeah, I can do it that way. Why don't you join me? Everybody do it again. Okay? So 2, 3, 4. Ta, 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 ta. You just wanted to do that to laugh at me. And again, it's not so much rocket science or with a gray area conducting. This is just you make it sound, sustain, accent, cut off, preparation for the next. Okay. Would that be fun? Yes. Right, and then, so, America the Beautiful, I want you to take those scores. Is there anybody that needs another copy of that? You all still have your original copy? Because I'd like to have you, we're gonna sing it in parts now, instead of just unison. So if you're not, like Brandon, I don't know what part you'd be comfortable singing. Would you prefer to be bass or tenor, or does it matter?
I don't think it matters.
Because you'll be singing one note all the way through it, is that what you're saying? No, I'm kidding. And you're baritone, you can sing tenor or baritone. You can do either one. You can do either one, you can do all. I don't know about your voice, so you feel comfortable singing higher, low. The good thing is that none of the parts are higher than low. Yeah, the tessitures are pretty reasonable. So we'll settle that later, but we've got enough people to at least get one person who feels somewhat comfortable holding the part. And then when you're up here conducting, we'll have 4 parts. I can help along from the keyboard just to make sure that we don't drift too far the pace. But the point is I'd like you to have actual sound to work with. You've got enough people to play the parts. So now we're going to start thinking about left hand. So if we, oh beautiful for spacious skies, for amber waves of grain, if the left hand is going to start taking some of the responsibilities from the right hand, there are going to be some times when we might continue the ictus with the right hand rather than have it stop. So 1 4 at the very end, or that I didn't say it would not have it stop, but not have it do the exact same motion is what I mean. So if there's a breath, 2 3, it may just look a little bit different. The overriding thing is going to be, there's not going to be anybody in the room that won't see that. And so it's the focus now is on the left hand taking over those things. However, we also don't want this. So that it suggests, okay, the sound continues for some of you, I guess, and the other sound stops. So it's unification of those kinds of things, but that there is going to be an override on some of the activities now by the left hand. So if we go, let's all just sing this in this key, oh beautiful for space, and I'd like you to conduct. Here we go. 2. Oh, beautiful, for spacious skies, good. Now help the singers not to breathe at the place that I chose not to breathe. Here we go. 2. Oh, with your left hand. Oh, yeah, so that's another use for the left hand. In part really both phrasing and don't breathe this. Connect those two things together. So I had a good idea that just went out of my head. Whatever. So now let's identify one syllable that we think is the most important in those 2 phrases that we hook together. Oh, beautiful for spacious sky. Somebody give me a syllable that we're gonna, it could be a whole word or just a syllable. Doesn't have to be the right one. What?
Spacious.
Stay
On space.
or should?
On space.
Okay. Oh, beautiful for space. That's where we're gonna go. You're gonna use our left hand to help emphasize that. For amber waves of gray.
Waves.
Julio, thank you. Who would win this class? Be 10 different hours. You said?
I said waves.
Okay, waves. So let's do those two. Here we go. Emphasize, what's the first one?
Space.
Huh?
Space. Isn't spacious.
Here we go. 2, 3. Oh, beautiful for space, sighs forever. Yeah, so emphasis, tenuto, or that kind of articulatory activity. So I had my brain clogged there when I was trying to remember. Gestures are like getting on the stage and off the stage. And so I'll show you. Oh, beautiful for spacious skies, for amber waves of gray. We have to be in motion way early, right? With all gestures. Otherwise, it's like, "Ah, what's that he just did?" So if I do, oh, beautiful for spacious skies, and then it's equally important to get the gesture off stage. Spacious skies. What do I do with it? And that issue is going to be, I think, not for everybody, but is often one of the main things that people deal with as they get used to conducting. Okay, I've done something with my left hand. Now what do I do with it? And it won't look this bad. I'm exaggerating, but it still will be, particularly if you go and you think, okay, I have to track now with it. Where is it? I mean, these are the kinds of things that you don't, oh yeah, until you realize I've got to do something with this extra appendage, it might get in the way. So, oh, beautiful for spacious skies. Could you, with me, take a breath on after skies, and then loop that around as a preparation for, because we're going to take a breath. Here we go. 2. Oh, beautiful for spacious skies. Yeah, and that's what I mean. And that's maybe a kind of an artificial example, but the left hand can also do melody there. So it's kind of and it's preparing the choir for the next thing. Then let's do this. 1, 2, staccato, do it. 1. That can be difficult. If you got 1 staccato, and you're still trying to show a line. Now hold your left hand across your body, and we'll do crescendo, diminuendo with the right hand, all while we're doing it. So we're starting here. Over 8 beats, then beat 5, or the downbeat of the second bar is going to be the loudest, and then we're going to get soft. Here we go. 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So getting used to space around you while there's a completely different shape being made with this hand, going the opposite direction. So these are the kinds of etudes that you can give yourself. And this is what the author talks about in the first couple of pages. And he makes some of the same suggestions. That this, what is called sagittal movement, forward and backward in our space, horizontal movement on this plane, and obviously vertical movement, then is going to play into Le Bon movement theory. So after we do this next step, because I want to make sure we're all on the same page, that no, being pro-conducting is not separate from technique and, you know, just draw shapes in the air to the way you feel. Because if we start with the Le Bon, you might get that idea. Are any of you in the Le Bon class now? Is Dr. Cox offering that this semester?
Probably not.
Yeah, well, yeah, there's some stuff that you couldn't do, isn't it? What about, have any of you taken from it?
I did for like 3 weeks.
Last term?
I don't remember what it was,
Why just 3?
because then I came Monday to study during ROTC again.
Okay. It was a military thing, huh?
Yeah.
Well, so you probably got into a little bit of the terminology at that point. And so that's the third thing I want to introduce at the same time of us working on the double hand exercise, including the left hand with the right hand technique and a miracle. And then we'll introduce next week the Le Bon movement theory. And I'm going to try to show only its applications to conduct. Le Bon is a very systematic kind of a, well, originally for dance, and it was started by Le Bon, who wrote this Le Bon notation, which I'll get into with you, but its design was not for conducting or music or whatever. It's others that have taken that theory and those concepts. It's sort of like the Alexander technique. The Alexander technique was originally started because an actor was getting sore on the stage, losing his voice because of poor posture he discovered. And did you talk about the story of Alexander? So, I mean, it's interesting how these things start and then how the application of these various things spread out to lots of other disciplines. And they can be a perfect match. And I think that there's some of the stuff of Le Bon that is just perfect for our discussions here, particularly the time-space continuum and weight and space and time and flow, for those of you that have heard those terms before. So this is like a preview at the movie. You know, here it comes. So back to America the Beautiful. What I would like you to do is revisit that very well-known piece. You don't have to relearn. It's just, I'd like you to choose a very specific tempo for yourself. So, and then I'm going to ask for it next week. In other words, Julio, what tempo, quarter note equals what on the metronome? And I'm going to encourage some of you to go ahead and take a pulled back, slower, moderately slow tempo. If you want to take it rather quickly, that would be fine too. Just so we don't have everybody at quarter note equals 72 or quarter note equals 8. See that? Because then we get kind of robotic in it's like when I say, okay, everybody, here's the tempo. It's really hard to own that. It's hard to own the physicality of it. So, and then your baseline tempo, remember we're talking baseline because we're not going to do this methodologically now. You will incorporate things like rallentandi or ritardando, accelerando. So make it more of a musical experience. You will choose where to breathe or where not to breathe. And then the last thing I want, and you're going to add dynamics to it. That's a big deal because there are no written dynamics in that score. the thing I will say with the final choice is you will also choose one of the three verses. I think there are three that. So that we also have different motivations. What are the biggest motivations for, I don't know, making artistic choices is what it says. If you're going to crescendo in one verse in a certain place, you probably wouldn't do that in another. If you're going to sing hush in one phrase, in one verse, you probably wouldn't do that in another. Is that thus far clear? So each of you are going to figure out for yourselves, okay, and maybe it would be best if you choose a verse. You know, to determine, okay, how do I feel this text and should it move a little forward? Should this verse be a little more stately, so maybe more of a march tempo, something like that. And then choose your verse and then choose your tempo. But those are the two things that I'd like you to have answered for me on Tuesday. Okay. Which verse do you want to conduct? It could be number one, that's fine. It can be number two, it can be number three, and then the tempo that you choose. Okay, to the quarter. Then ultimately, you're going to make your decisions about all those other things. I just want to get that settled so that I have a record of who's going to conduct which verse. And then if we have everybody that says, I want verse 2, maybe I can encourage some splitting up, because it's going to be helpful for all of us not to be doing the same words and every single time. Not that the other two verses are stunning, but they're at least different. Okay, so I'll send you these for your own self-reflection. I'm going to do it a little bit different this time because I wasn't used to doing in all the other semesters when we haven't been on COVID. I haven't ever sent evaluative comments on the first exercise. That's always been a baseline, but I think I'm going to do that anyway. And what I'll do is I'll take your comments for the first America and just add my own to them and return those to you. But I'm going to send these up front as soon as I get these videos for these etudes. I'm just going to send my comments with them to you, and then you will respond after you watch yourself, and then do the same thing you did before. Just send me a couple of sentences, 2 or 3 sentences about what you see, where you thought, if you thought, yeah, I think I basically accomplished everything. There were a couple of misfires. Here's the reason why I think that happened, and if I were to do it again, what I would do. Those kinds of things. I thought your comments were right on to the last piece. So you'll actually be getting 2 comments for this week. Okay. Thank you. And appreciate your help. If you'll just put the stands back, Harrison stands back at. Sometimes I've forgotten to say that, but there's obviously other classes that come in here. Now I'm a star. You know how I stopped this, Garrett? I stopped my live Zoom. And I just paused it here, but is that all I have to do? I think we can figure out probably okay. We'll find out. Okay, yeah. But at least this time it doesn't have to be processed. Yeah. I did a little test before and it worked. So. I found it. I found the